Hey there, Bookkeeping Side Hustle community. It's Kate, and we are back with another live stream of Behind the Hustle. Today, we are going to be interviewing Jordan Weinstein. He is yet another example of a successful bookkeeping and accounting entrepreneur. And I'm excited to be able to share his story with you. As a reminder, the purpose of these interviews are to provide a real life look at what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur in this accounting and bookkeeping space. We're going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly as I talk about it. I'm sure it hasn't been all roses for Jordan. I don't know his full story, but I'm going to ask him to share those highs and those lows. And so hopefully if you listen to this and listen to other interviews in this series, there'll be there's a playlist for all these interviews. You'll listen to a few and you'll get a feel whether this can be a path that you can go down. I'm going to ask him the same questions I've asked all of our guests. And so also just make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we will do one of these every 2 weeks for the foreseeable future. If you have someone that you want me to interview, you can comment below and give me some ideas. Otherwise, I'll just be bringing in interesting stories of people that I have met. And before we introduce Jordan all the way, we're going to say thanks to our sponsor, WriteTool. This episode is sponsored by WriteTool. If you use QuickBooks Online without WriteTool, you don't know what you're missing. WriteTool enhances the entire experience for QuickBooks Online power users with the free version providing all sorts of navigational improvements and shortcuts, and the pro version, which adds batching tools to delete, create, and edit many types of transactions in batch, saving you hours of work in your monthly bookkeeping and cleanup work. Visit writetool.app to start with the free edition, and when you're ready to upgrade to the pro version, you can use Hustle30, the code Hustle30, to get 30% off the pro edition for the first year. So that's at writetool.app. And now we will get into saying hello to Jordan. Jordan.
Hey, Kate, how's it going? I'm really excited to be on this Behind the Hustle live stream, and just really excited to kind of hopefully provide some value to your listeners and, really provide motivation to go out there and make things happen. So really grateful to be here.
That's fantastic. So I've never met Jordan in person, but I have met him online because he was a winner of one of the Accounting Cornerstone Foundation scholarships last year, right? So
yes,
we were able to
this year.
Yeah,
I know.
Sorry, we're in 2025. So we may or may not get into the details of that, but y'all, accountingcornerstone.org is a nonprofit that me and some other folks in the industry founded to be able to send people to their very first accounting conference. So we'll plug that a little bit here. But now let's just get into a little bit about you, Jordan. Tell us about who you are. Your education, your training, career background, and your interesting business. It's got an interesting name. I'll let you say it. Tell us about it.
Of course. So my background really is, I would say, quite unconventional. So I graduated college in COVID. So during that time, we all know, I don't need to give the backstory, virtual world, craziness, masks. And I think it was a time for reflection for a lot of people of kind of reset. And for me, I never really even got started in the world at that time. I just finished college and I was studying finance, was not really studying accounting. I took accounting in college. But my long-term vision was really to go kind of the investment route. So I was really interested in public companies, financial statements. So I was interested in the high level stuff, but not really the nitty gritty of like the mechanism of everything that's pushing, the financial world. And to be honest, I was very much of a journaler. I really loved going deep and kind of understanding myself better, personal development. And during that time, I really was trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do? Like, do I want to go down this route? Do I want to go down the corporate route? And for me, entrepreneurship was always in the back of my mind. I always knew I wanted to start something in the future. But most of the time, it's very much oriented around kind of build the foundation and start it later in life. And for me, at that time, I knew what I really wanted to do. And at that moment, I was actually quite discouraged by the kind of, I would say, industry itself and finance, with like it being very driven off of, starting out somewhere where you have to kind of maybe sell life insurance to then build up. And I just like opposite of my personality. Like I was actually very opposed to sales, which always kind of scared me.
Okay.
And I'm very much more driven by education and providing value. And for me, I was going through this moment of like looking down like the financial coaching route and like all these different routes like in the entrepreneurial world. But for me, I felt like I didn't have the tangible skills to do that yet. I understood it for myself, but to provide it to others was hard. And I swear, like on my life, this is what happened is I was watching a YouTube video about someone who started a bookkeeping business, a YouTube video like this. And they were mentioning how they essentially they took a course online and they started learning all the mechanisms of not only accounting, but running a small business, because those are two very different things.
For sure.
And she was explaining like the key word for me was like financial statements and education. And I was like, wait a minute, I can work with the financial statements for small businesses and also educate. And like, that was like the like light bulb moment for me, was that I can actually go down this route. So fast forward, a few days, I was so motivated. I purchased the course. It was called the Bookkeeper Launch Course, and dove like really headfirst into it right out of college. So very unconventional. I didn't start in the corporate world. I didn't start at any of the big four, that a lot of people do start at in the accounting space. So I was very unconventional. And that was kind of the beginning stages of where I am today.
It shows how unactive I am in the Bookkeeper launch community. So that was the course I took. It was 7 years ago, though.
Okay.
And so I know there's a private Facebook group for it, but I've definitely launched. So you're one of those earlier students. Y'all, that course, it's one. There are many. We've interviewed Jaime, who runs that company, and it's how I got started. Sounds like it's how Jordan got started. I have a bookkeeping course comparison guide, and I will link to that after this. I'll put it in the YouTube description. I try to keep tabs on that. You can do it on your own. I think courses help you go a little quicker and not have to like second guess yourself. You just pick one course and then just do what that one course says, because a lot of them say the same. So I think it's more of a who do you jive with. So probably the COVID situation helped. I wonder if you would be here if you hadn't graduated during COVID. I bet that maybe I wonder if that would have delayed this, because you probably would have gotten a normal job and things would have felt normal. And so sometimes just like our circumstances do expedite what was probably going to happen anyway. Okay, well, that's a great background. So you do have some formal training. College doesn't really go into the small business accounting side, though. So you kind of have to learn that. A public company's 10K does not help us learn how to like help the plumber.
Exactly.
But very cool. So you decided to do this. That means you had to get a client. Tell us about that first client.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is like the Mount Everest, right? Of when you're starting a business, because it can be so hard to start, right? Like you take the leap, you go into the course, you're learning the skills. The one thing I realized is like when you're learning the skills, there's a lot of progress that happens. So you feel very much accomplished. But then that moment of like the first client, you're like, oh my gosh, like I know what I'm doing. I know that like I can provide value, but being able to show other people that I can do it, that's a whole nother thing. So the one thing I will say is this was my motto in this whole process, was like, always start before you're ready.
Okay.
And for me, getting the first client didn't happen when I actually got the first client. It was everything I did prior to getting the first client, which was building up a professional, building my professional business, like opening the LLC, getting insurance, like all those things to make sure I feel like a professional. When I go out there and I am trying to get my first client, it felt like I knew my value. I wasn't second guessing it. And as long as that came off, and I will say that the networking was how I got my first client. That was the real, I guess, bread and butter of getting the client. And to kind of, go into that COVID world, my first networking event was actually online. So I did a BNI networking event, and super nerve-wracking, but I think the virtual made it a little bit easier probably. I'd never networked prior to that really. And it was moving out of the whole virtual and kind of there were more in-person events. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to find in-person events. And I found events through meetup.com. So I went on Meetup and I just went to as many networking events as I could. And I actually ended up going. So I kind of got two first clients, and I'll explain this briefly.
Okay.
So I went to this networking event and I was really well prepared, knew my business. At the time, my business name was different. It was Boundless Bookkeeping Solutions, the longest name of all time. My URL and email were ridiculous. Couldn't even fit on my business card. But I took the leap anyways. And so I went to a networking event and I met a CPA that was looking to get help with some of their clients on the bookkeeping side. And she had come up to me and she had asked, do you work with inventory? And being like, for me, I was like, I wanted a service business, start with. Inventory is a whole nother thing. And I essentially said to her, full transparency, I said, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. And for me, that was enough for her to want to help me. And I think that's one of the biggest things is people out there do want to help. And she was just giving me an opportunity. And my first client was kind of under, I would say, her client list. So I was able to work with these clients and just kind of learn the ropes of working with a real client. And then probably, let's say, maybe a few weeks later, I joined a networking group that met every week. And I got my first actual client through that networking group. And I have them still to this day. So that was 4 years ago. So wow. Yeah, kind of two-part. First client under the CPA working with her. Eventually, she did offload those clients to me once she was fully done with them. But that was amazing. So networking is the answer to that question.
Is the monthly networking group that you joined, was that a big BNI group?
No, it was something local in Colorado. So it wasn't BNI.
I don't know if you're all listening and have never heard of that, but if you Google BNI, there are BNI chapters all over. There will be one within 50 minutes of you, and they all take 2 free visits. So you can go to a BNI group 2 times. And I think it's a great practice. When I was very first starting, I was like, I gotta talk to people about being a bookkeeper. And there was a 7 a.m. one in Virginia Beach. And I was like, asked my husband, can you be late for work? Can you stay home? Let me go do this early morning thing. This was, when our kids were little, and he did. And I went for and they're harmless. I mean, some people think they're great. Some people have built their whole business on the back of BNI. Some people think it's, not a good fit for them, that it's, too much of a commitment, but there's no, everyone should try to go to a BNI meeting at least once. I think it's like an entrepreneur rite of passage. So I like the in-person networking. We have a live stream with a friend of mine named Erin Pohan, who she's grown her business with that in-person networking. It is, as long as you serve them virtually and you're not going and getting their shoebox full of receipts, right? It doesn't matter if your firm is mostly local, as long as you have that virtual mentality where, hey, if I leave for a month, and because we want to have that digital freedom that we can in 2025. So of course, I'm all about. I think in-person networking is great. I actually tell people when they ask how to get a client, I was like, if you look 100 people in the eyes and tell them that you're a bookkeeper, I believe everyone would get a client. Not everyone wants to do that, but that's kind of this idea of first clients. It's probably the easiest way, rather than trying to learn Google ads or LinkedIn DMs. Have you told 100 people yet? Belly to belly, shaking hands, knocking on the strip mall doors. Who knows? But I think that's a great way.
And if I may add, the one thing I noticed when I was networking is a lot of BNIs, they have these membership, kind of orientations where if there's an insurance agent in there already, that's the insurance agent. But every group I went to, there was not a bookkeeper. There might have been a CPA, but they most of the CPAs in the group are doing taxes. They might do bookkeeping, but that's not their main service of why they're there. So the one thing I found is if you are a bookkeeper, there's so many opportunities because there's just so few out there that are in these groups.
Yep.
So it's super valuable, like, because they're like, oh, we need a bookkeeper in this group. Like, we don't have anyone to refer to. And you're like, oh, let me, you can
Yeah.
refer to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get to this. So we'll ask the question, the hardest part. What's been the hardest part? We don't want to make this seem like it's all fun and games.
Yeah, of course. So the hardest part, I think, this can go for any type of entrepreneurship, I would say, is like, your mind is your worst enemy when it comes to business. Your doubts are going to come up so much. And that's why I think it's so important my favorite thing is, the way to build confidence is to do the things you say you're going to do, and don't vary. Like, if you say you're going to do these things, do it. That builds confidence. And the hardest thing is the confidence in the beginning, and really at any phase, because no matter where you are, there's always another place you want to get to. When you're starting, the first place you want to get to is your first client. When you're, 5 years in, the next place you want to get to might be a client that felt so out of your range when you first started, but now your skills permit you to maybe get that client. So I would say the mind is the biggest thing to, have that hurdle. And I'll tell a quick story. The hardest thing for me personally was my age going into the space.
Yep.
And I'll tell you a really quick story. So during this whole networking, the networking was not all rainbows and butterflies. Not everyone really gave me a warm welcome. There were plenty of people that did, but I remember specifically during this time, I was like, I want to meet other bookkeepers that are doing this. I just want to learn, because most of the bookkeepers I knew were from the online community in the bookkeeper launch, which was wonderful. But I wanted to meet people in person. So I made a connection in the networking group through another bookkeeper, and we hadn't met in person, but we decided to do a virtual call. And the first thing I noticed was the jarring reality of that she was probably 50 years older than me. And, that was a huge thing. And like, it was immediately noticeable. Right. And in that call, this was very early, she told me to my face, she was like, you are really dumb, and you need to go back to school, because you're never going to make it doing this by yourself.
What?
Yeah. Crazy, right? Like, this was like just a super night. Like, I just wanted to learn. And it was just and I could see the place she was probably coming from. Like, she's thinking to herself, this is helpful because I don't want this kid to mess up other people, small businesses, books, all these things. Yeah. And I just remember like smiling and just being super like respectful. And I remember leaving that call and just feeling like crap, just like, damn, like, I have a strong, heart, I have a strong mind, but no matter what, when you're told that, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, the mental things of like going into it, and just like, if people are not going to be receptive to who I am, that's fine. But I do know people out there that will be. And I feel like that's the hardest thing, is getting over the doubts and things in your mind, because you can't control what other people are going to say and do. You just have to control what you can do, and just staying the course and staying who you are. That's really the hardest part, because it's very easy to listen to other people and listen to what, you can't do this and all these other things. So you just have to stay true to yourself.
Thanks for sharing that story. Sorry that she did that. I would say the balance that probably she just handled poorly is this idea of, she didn't know how hard you were willing to work and how smart you were, right? And so you have to be smart and you have to be willing to work hard, or she would be right, right? Mm-hmm. Or like you weren't going to make it. Yeah. And you have just proven that, by your consistency, by your working harder in the early years. I know that you are putting in a lot of hard work into projects that are not easy. That inventory client, there's no way that wasn't easy for, Yeah. So you're learning these things, and like, it's early in the morning, late at night, giving up your weekends. I'm certain that's part of your story. So it won't always be. But if you weren't willing to do that, then you would have wrecked people's books and been a bad bookkeeper, right? So
your why has to be strong. It really does. And
well, let's go to the next question. We'll bring it back up to the good side. What's been the best part about entrepreneurship?
For me, I think just the growth as a person. Like, entrepreneurship is like the ultimate way for like personal discovery and kind of like really seeing your flaws, and trying to work on those. I think if you have a mindset of growth and wanting to be better, entrepreneurship is like, it's the best route to go for that. But I think just having the freedom to make decisions for yourself, like what's best for you, what's the best for your family, like all that freedom, it comes with a cost, right? Responsibility and all those other variables. But it's so worth it because you get to have this direction that very few people get to have. And if you work hard enough and you really are passionate about it, the rewards, what you reap is incredible. So for me, I think the freedom and to make decisions that align best with myself is just the greatest gift you can have when you run a business. It's what everybody strives for. A lot of times you hear small business owners, they're working way more than they would be if they were working a 9 to 5. But at the same time, when you really love what you do, sometimes working more is not a bad thing, as long as you know what you want and you can create any life you want when you're an entrepreneur. And that's like, there's a lot of like, I think there's so much freedom there that can be intimidating, but also if you just like remove everybody else's perspective of like, you need to have $1 million business, or you need to have, employees. It's like, no, if you just want to run like a business to support your family, that's totally in the cards. So the freedom to decision. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's just talk about the structure of the company and how like that day-to-day looks now. I'm curious about like your team. Are you using contractors? Are you using any staff? Are you working for other people still, like yourself? Are you someone's contractor still? Can you just let us know that, just the day-to-day structure?
Yeah. So the structure right now, so I do have one contractor that's here in the US. And so for me, like like I would say the first 2 years was me. Like I was working, the only real structure I ever had was someone that I was kind of like partnering with. The CPA was in the very beginning. I don't have that anymore, but right now the main structure has been me. And then up now this year has kind of been a transition point where I've been able to outsource a lot more of the data entry to focus more on some of the more high strategy level areas that I really wanted to get into. So right now it's just me and a contractor, but my vision long-term is to have a team. And I think the most beautiful part also is you get to decide who you are in your business. So for me, getting out of more of the weeds and focusing on the more strategy and figuring out operational stuff, that's where I really love to do. So, being able to do that has been really nice.
Is that contractor like part-time? Like, I'm trying to think about the scale. Like,
yeah, it's part-time. So part-time, and I'm grateful the person that I've been able to find, they're very motivated to like grow with me. And it's just kind of been it's just been like a perfect fit because now I kind of can focus on getting some more ideal clients and, kind of giving her the work that she really loves to do. And then it's just kind of like a very symbiotic relationship. It works well.
Fantastic. So let's talk about your tech stack.
Yes.
Share what you love. Share what you've tried and gotten rid of. Let's just be honest here. No one, we can say whatever we want. So how are you running your firm?
Yeah. Well, I have to call out Right Tool because they're a sponsor of your show. I use Right Tool.
It's like we're batting almost 1,000 of all these interviewees. So yes, everyone get Right Tool if you use QuickBooks.
And I actually got it this year. So I discovered it this year and it's been amazing, especially with all the changes QuickBooks has been doing. It just makes it a lot easier to not stall your workflow. So Right Tool is up there. So I am a very tech forward, I would say, entrepreneur. I've tried like every tech, like any tech that I really like come across. I've been like that from the very beginning. And when I started my business, kind of crazy, actually, like AI was not a thing, which is kind of wild to think about because I haven't been in it that long, So for me, when I started, I kind of went through all these iterations of like, from day one, my main goal was like, how do I make this as easy for the client as possible? And that kind of started with like the client communication system. It's like you kind of start in spreadsheets, and then I found Keeper when I was I guess now it's Double. So
Double, yeah.
yeah. So Double is what I use for my client management and bookkeeping workflows, which I love. Like there's so many great tools. They're always kind of iterating. In addition to that, I also use like Stripe for payment processing. I love Stripe because there's a lot of customability to that. I use Gusto for payroll. I was using QuickBooks for payments originally because it was just easy, but I moved to Stripe because I saw it as more scalable for like the direction I was going.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And the good thing with Stripe too, I will say, is a lot of bookkeepers, I don't know if they accept credit cards. If they do, the one thing that's very nice is if you do ACH, there's like a complete like limit on the ACH. So the fees are a lot lower if you structure it correctly.
Okay.
So Stripe's really good. And then, I mean, other tech stack stuff, I really am focused on automation now. So I use Zapier, which is a great automation tool, and then make.com.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of on the automation side. And then tech stack outside of bookkeeping for myself, like if people are interested in content, I use something called Buffer for scheduling content posts on like LinkedIn. It's a free software, which is really great. And then trying to think what else tech stack wise. I think those are like the main core things I use every day.
What about for proposals?
Oh yes, proposals. So I actually use a software called Quiller. It's actually an Australian company. I just found them on a Google search, and they allow you to create interactive proposals. So I have this calculator that I built in the proposal that a entrepreneur or business owner can put in their hours, and it'll calculate based off of what their hourly rate is, how much they're spending on bookkeeping and accounting when they're doing it themselves or when they're doing AR themselves. So It creates a nice pricing framing for when I go into my pricing.
All right, Quiller. Check it out, y'all. I've never heard of it. Okay. That's why we have these conversations. That's amazing. Okay. So now the question that I love to ask is about the money. Anything you're willing to share about revenue, income, the trajectory over these last four years? Did you make barely any money the first year? Like what's that story of where you are, how much you're charging your clients, just anything you're willing to share about the revenue side. I think it's really hard to get accurate figures on all that. And so I try my best to try to collect some of this data, or just let people share the story of this data. So what can you share?
Yeah, well, the first thing I will share is the money I spent on the course, I made that threefold back the first year.
Okay.
So the investment in the course really, like, that was my main thing. Like, I was like, if I invest in this course, I just want to make my money back if this doesn't work, Okay. And for me, it was very much like, that was like kind of like a success point for me of like, wow, I already, I kind of made this money back of what I spent. So that was the first year. And then, so this next year would be going on 5 years. And what I will say is it has not been an up into the right kind of situation for me. It's been very determined based off of like my ability, like my willingness to really find clients, and like, because most of my clients have been referral based from the very beginning of like doing good work. And there, that does reach a point of like, referrals can only go as far and long as you are connecting with more people. Okay. So for me, when I stopped connecting with people, my revenue kind of went down. So for myself, my pricing has always been a fixed fee model from the very beginning.
Okay.
And so my pricing can range. So I've kind of changed my business model a little bit, but I was doing originally only monthly pricing and obviously cleanup pricing as well. Mm-hmm. But I used the pricing calculator. This was a huge value proposition of the Bookkeeper launch course, was the pricing calculator. So taking your hourly rate, let's say you want to make your hourly rate $75 or $85, then the calculator will allow you to put in all the variables that would go into pricing. So transactions, account number, are there two owners, all these variables, right?
Mhm.
And so my pricing in the very beginning was ranging from, let's say 400 to like upwards of 600 a month when I
Okay.
was starting. And then over time, as I've gotten more skilled and really understood the type of business I want to serve, it's gone above 600 a month in terms of like monthly bookkeeping.
Okay.
So it's really been a scaling factor. And then for a little while, I was building like a quarterly package for some clients for like really kind of like solopreneurs that just needed basic compliance. And I was
Mhm.
doing like 750 a quarter for them. And it was just a great learning experience to kind of see like the different pricing models and how much am I making per hour based off of like these quarterly services versus monthly.
Yep.
And what I will say is the beautiful part about it is the bookkeeping business can be very high net income type of business, right? High
Mhm.
margins. So your expenses are not really as variable of like some other businesses.
Yeah.
So if you keep it pretty lean, you could be making a profit the first year, 100%.
Yep. Are you still doing those quarterly packages?
So not as much. I'm not taking on as much anymore, just because my focus has kind of shifted out of the solopreneur range of
Okay.
clientele. But it was I would say the one thing I never regret is having no regrets. It's like you learn what you like by experience. So
Awesome. Well, we'll close this out. Is there any last words of wisdom, any last piece of advice for a new bookkeeping entrepreneur?
the one thing I will say two parts. The one thing I will say is transparency is everything when it comes to starting your business. Never put yourself in a position where you have to act like you know something, because that's the one thing is like, I think a lot of people, they feel like they need to pretend they know more just to get a client. And I think if you're transparent and you show you're willing to work hard, the one thing I always told clients in the beginning is I'm never going to answer a question I don't know, but I'm willing to do the research for you and make sure you have the right answers to make the best decision. So number one would be transparency. And number two, this is something that I have embraced in my own business, is when you're working with a client, over deliver, like do way more than they're paying you to do. Because what I found is those skills you're building over delivering for this one client, they're going to be the skills you need to get the next big client that's going to pay you a higher price potentially.
Yep.
So whether it's learning how to analyze financial reports, doing some sort of comparison, or even just providing maybe, or like learning payroll, like learning all these things, they'll just really propel you into a new direction potentially. So never ever like think to yourself, I'm just going to do what I kind of, put it on my proposal to do. And obviously you don't want to do scope creep to a large extent. You want to do it for your own skill and your
Yep.
own learning. So I would say those two things.
That's such a good idea. The thing that kept coming into my mind was this idea of like the executive, like reports you can put together and
Oh
save
yeah,
in
yeah.
softwares or in Keeper, or like it stinks to like build that first one,
Yeah,
like
of
what am I
course.
like, but then like after you've got it and you understand like, oh, I can save these custom reports and I can add a little
Totally.
doodad at the top, and then you look like the hero, and they
Mhm.
didn't ask for that, but then you get to sell it for like an extra $300. Every other client is going to start paying for that.
Yeah,
I love that idea of like scope creep when you are skill building is maybe not that bad. And like you can think of there being an actual ROI there, even though it's not cash in the bank.
totally. Yeah.
Um, what a great insight. Very, very cool. Especially because most people, I'm guessing, listening to this are going to be on that early side.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and so you have to understand that like, so that's kind of like unpaid time, right? You're driving your effective hourly rate down whenever we're
Yeah.
doing that extra work. But if you've got the long game in your head, guys, that's when you get to a year from now, you have all these clients that take you 2 or 3 hours of work a month, like barely, because you've zip zam zoomed everything with
Yeah.
your makes and with your Zapiers and your saved reports and client portals and all that stuff. It's like
Totally.
it does build. Very cool. You know what? This was awesome. I thank you for being here. we will be back again sometime in the next 2 weeks with another interview. These are going to keep going, y'all. Jordan, your insight has been great. I think you do maybe take the award for the youngest guest, and that is totally fine. Yeah,
I'll take it.
I so glad that we got to meet through the Accounting Cornerstone Foundation. If y'all have never been to a conference, y'all need to apply, everybody.
Yes.
Apply for the conference. And look down in the description below for links to some of the stuff that he has mentioned. I'll have the bookkeeping courses. I have a link to a document that contains all of that I know about. So we'll end for now. Jordan, thank you. We're signing off, everybody. Adios.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye.